Here's a quick little video to show you how we would calculate the z-score in this example, because the work below kind of skips some of the steps. So I'd like to walk you through it. So the formula that we're using is the z-score formula for categorical data. So it's got all of the different p's in it. It's got p hat, capital P, and N. So let's first recap what all of those letters represent. So our p hat, you might remember, is your sample statistic. The capital P is your population proportion. And N is the same as it's always been the whole time, and that is your sample size. So when attacking this formula, I like to gather each of my numbers that go with each variable in the formula, and then I break it into pieces. I do the numerator, I do the denominator, and then the last step will be to divide. So reading through the example here, we see that the population proportion P is 10%. It tells us that in the problem there, based on a report by the Pew Research Center. So P is 10%, and N is our sample size, which we can see that later they randomly selected 100 young adults. 100 is our sample size. And in that sample, we found that 15% of the sample was enrolled in community college. So 15% is our p-hat. So those are the three numbers we need. So I'm going to replace them into the formula, making sure to change my percentages to decimals. So 10% would be 0.10 and 15% would be 0.15. So p-hat, our sample statistic, is 15%, 0.15 minus P, which is 10%, 0.10, divided by big square root symbol, P, 0.10, times 1 minus P, 0.10, divided by N, our sample size, which is 100. Now that I got all my numbers in place, I take this one step at a time. So let's start with the denominator. This is the standard error, this big square root formula. So we're going to follow the order of operations, start with our parentheses first, and then work from there. So I'm going to rewrite it over here on the side. 0.10 times 1 minus 0.10 divided by 100. So I would solve the parentheses first, use my calculator to subtract those, and we end up with 0.10 times 0.90 divided by 100. Then I would multiply those together. Multiplying together 0.10 times 0.9 is 0.09. Next in the order of operations would be to divide that by 100. I realize now I just lost my 0 there, adding it back in. Divide 0.9 by 100. We do that, and we get 0.0009, very small number. And so then our last step here would be to square root this. So when we square root this number, we end up with our final answer for the denominator, which is 0.03. That is our standard error. And that is the number that we're going to put in the denominator of our z-score. So if I'm rewriting this, my new denominator now, keeping track of things, is 0.03. Now let's do the numerator. The numerator is a lot simpler. It's just one little step. We would plug into our calculator 0.15 minus 0.10, and you get 0.05. Our last step is to divide those two numbers. So again, grabbing your calculator and dividing 0.05 divided by 0.03. And we end up with a z-score of 1.666667. So I'm just going to round that to 2 decimal places and get 1.67, the same answer that's represented there in the problem. I hope this video helped you understand where that number came from, and be sure to message me if you have any questions.